Hello and welcome to another Board Crazy review. Today we are doing Battle for Biternia. I am D, joined as ever by these two.
I'm Graham.
And I am William Longshanks.
Why?
Because Longshanks was the MVP of our game.
Well, I wouldn't say MVP.
I was just going to ask why it always seems like D's disappointed when he cuts over to us, and now I understand.
It's not hard to figure out. He always has something ridiculous to say. So, that's us. We're going to get to our review here in a moment. Before we do that, we're going to run my introduction from our gameplay video for this game so you have an idea of how it plays if you are interested in that. If you're not, you can just skip to the time provided. But here it goes. Battle for Biternia is a game for 2 to 4 players designed by Chris Faulkenberry and published by Stone Circle Games. It attempts to bring the multiplayer online battle arena, or MOBA, genre of video games to the tables, with 2 teams of heroes maneuvering and battling it out in an attempt to destroy the other side's elemental bit. Each game starts with both sides setting their 3 towers and elemental bit standees in the designated spaces with a hit point tracker underneath each. Also, 3 gold tokens are placed on the board at the spaces with the matching icon. Then each side will draft their 4 heroes. Each hero starts at level 1 and has maximum hit points equal to the number printed on their card plus their level. Each hero also comes with 4 special abilities, and at the start of the game, players will choose 1 card per hero to put into their starting hand. Each side also receives a deck of 12 basic action cards. These get shuffled up and then players will draw 1 card per hero they control into their hand to complete their starting hand. The last bit of setup simply requires the teams to go back and forth, placing 1 hero at a time on one of their own tower spaces. No more than 2 heroes may be present on any tower space at the start of the game. After that, the game begins. The first thing done each round is the assigning of orders. Players will place 1 card face down beneath each hero they control. Any special abilities specific to heroes must be played to that hero. Once this is done, then the movement phase occurs, where players will go back and forth, taking turns either moving one of their heroes or choosing to pass for a hero. Once this is finished, then it's on to the action phase. During the action phase, teams go back and forth, revealing and carrying out the actions for 1 hero at a time. These actions will allow players to do things like attack, defend, or heal. Alternatively, a player can choose to discard a revealed action card in order to perform a universal action, such as farming for gold or resting in order to heal up. Once all actions have been carried out, then the player's towers and elemental bits will attack any enemy forces in their spaces, and then the cleanup occurs. At the start of cleanup, each side gains 2 gold. This gold can then be used to level up any heroes if they can afford it. When a hero is leveled up, its maximum hit points are increased, and the player may draw a new special ability for that hero and place it into their hand. Once this is done, the player may discard as many cards from their hand as they like into their face-up discard pile, and then they draw cards from their draw pile back up to their maximum hand limit. The face-up discard piles work like cooldown timers. When a player's draw deck is exhausted, they simply flip over the face-down discard pile and start drawing from that instead. When a hero is defeated on the battlefield, their card is moved into the discard pile. Therefore, when it is drawn again later in the game, it is placed back into play. The game ends when one side's elemental bit is destroyed. At the start of the game, the heroes cannot directly attack the elemental bit, but they may do so once they've destroyed at least 1 tower. However, every time a hero is removed from the game or a tower is destroyed, the elemental bit does suffer 3 damage, which cannot be ignored. So the game can be won that way instead. Okay, so hopefully you now have a basic idea of how the game works. This is a MOBA in board game form.
Yes, it is.
No
D.
arguing that, at least.
That was a long intro, D.
Was it?
It's one of your longest ones.
Well,
Congratulations.
there's a lot to cover here.
There is.
Battle for Biternia.
It is a MOBA.
Said that already.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will say it is a MOBA. I think they do an admirable job of translating the experience of a MOBA to the board game setting, given the limitations therein. I'm not an expert on MOBAs. I find them somewhat intimidating in general, but I think, from what I know and what I've observed, this seems, to more or less capture the spirit of the genre.
I do feel that
You have perhaps more experience
I don't have that. I played like League of Legends a little bit. It was terrible. Like you said, they're intimidating, and they're not. You go in there, and I was the guy that would be running around not knowing where he's going, and people would be in the chat laughing at me.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Anyway, it's I do think I'm sure we have different opinions on I know we have different opinions on the game, but I do agree that this is about as close to a MOBA you can get for a board game.
Yeah.
Oh,
that makes sense.
Games we play. Yeah. I mean,
No. I mean, like they designed it in a way that's like about as close to as you can get to the feeling of a MOBA in a board game format. It's just I don't think it's a very natural thing to transfer to a board game setting.
No.
And I think the designers did a good job with that.
I agree with you guys, by the way. I think that one of this game's strongest traits is it's clearly very dedicated to being as close to a MOBA as it can be. And I think that you can see the passion behind its design when you play it. And I think that in and of itself is endearing. Like it's an endearing quality that it's like, as I could almost sense the designer and the play testers as I was playing this and just like, what they poured into this and how much work they put into it to try to get it as close to, and I think that, like we already kind of said, they did a very admirable job. Why don't we talk about some of the specific gameplay elements that we like and then dislike and...
I actually enjoy the just like the sort of the order of operations of it all, like the assigning of actions, then the movement, then the carrying out of actions, sort of like back and forth one at a time. I feel like that's a good, solution to the problem here.
Yeah.
Where it allows for a good amount of, I think, like strategy and tactics to be used and like on the fly too, because your plans may change as your opponents make their moves, like even in the middles of these phases. So I thought, as a alternative to a turn-based, as a real-time thing, I thought that worked pretty well.
Actually, I was really surprised at how quickly the game moves. There is a bit of downtime when you're planning and the part where you're assigning action cards to each person, which doesn't necessarily feel much like a video game, because it actually does slow the proceedings down maybe a little bit too much at that point. But then once that's all done, the moving, the actions, all of that happens fairly quickly, and it's fairly intense. And I think I really liked how you have to kind of strategize and adapt on the fly, because it's... if you watched our gameplay or if you can see the board here now, and I'll be overlaying stuff, it's close quarters.
Yeah.
Like there aren't many places where you can go and hide.
Yeah, you can't really hide. So you're always going to be within probably at most 2 spaces of another person.
Like in most MOBAs are like built around like a 3-lane map design, and this game definitely has like there's the middle lane, there's these outside lanes.
Yeah.
And it seems like the middle lane, especially just like in a lot of video games, the tanks kind of charge in, and there's always a conflict there, like almost immediately. I like that.
Often there is, yeah.
But yeah, I just like that there's combat. It happens quick and it happens fast, and it's basically unending from the time the game starts to the time it ends.
I mean, I think I have a pretty different opinion than you guys on when it comes to order of operations, and that may be pretty consistent throughout this, because even though I appreciated the design of this, there was a lot of things I disliked about the game in general. But the order of operations, I felt it didn't feel very natural in the sense that, okay, you move and then you battle and then you battle
actions, and then you move, then you battle.
Yeah. And so that, I think, trying to translate that real-time strategy, it became very hard to, I think, combine and work the tactics that you're given on the cards into a general strategy on the board. I almost felt like it would have been better if you had a move ability, something like that, where it wasn't so, it gives you a little bit more flexibility, because I felt it was pretty rigid in just the, that general, and everyone kind of takes their, and it just, you do all the move orders, and then you do all the action orders, all the, action orders and all the, battle orders. It became very tough, at least and maybe it was the cards that I picked, but it became very tough for me to try and, I think maybe what it was is that in MOBAs, a huge part of the game is timing.
Yeah.
A lot of it is timing. Like, can I, timing something correctly? And I never got that sense that I was doing something to be able to time it correctly. It just felt very...
It's kind of like...
basic and rigid, I think, is the way it was like, okay, I'm doing that. I never was able to feel like I could manipulate the the actions that we have on the board to really work well with, timing a move as I wanted to. But and that comes back to the whole real-time versus turn-based nature of the game. It's hard to combine that feeling into the game because you can see all the things that your opponents are doing, and
that is
not
sort of unique to the board game experience. I think. In the video game, you're probably not going to be seeing the entire board like that. You're focused on what you're doing.
It's weird. I think for me, I felt similar at times where that in a video game that's happening in real time, you can react. In this game, you act. You're never reacting to what people are doing because of the order of operations. You place your action cards down, then movement happens. Yeah. So this plan you have to attack someone or to attack the tower, something like people will move out of spaces. Like you plan your actions kind of around what's on the board, and then after movement, people are gone. Everything's moved around, and now it's like
you have to plan for that though. You know it's going to happen. So
but I'm saying that's different than the feeling you get in a MOBA game, and that's what I'm saying. If you're trying to translate that to the board game, I said it's not easy, but I think there was a way that could have been done that give you a little bit more flexibility in your order of operations with maybe 2 movements or an ability to maybe trade out one of your action cards or something like, hey, I'm gonna, you have maybe one of your cards you're allowed to trade out and trade back, for something else.
Some of the cards, or if you did like move, then you play action cards, then actions. If you shifted move to the first thing you do, and then you play action cards after you see where everyone's gone. At least that way you feel like you have more agency over your strategy. Instead, I know there were several times where you had plans for people that were on your spot or something, and then they would leave that spot. Yeah. And then you feel like you're in a MOBA video game. You feel like you have a lot more control over what happens. And then in this game, you combine like the randomness of the card draw, and then people shifting around after you plan your actions. It can definitely feel like a lot of it's being taken out of your hands. And
and that's a good way to. That's kind of
I think some of it also comes down to just. There's a really solid variety of characters provided in this game, and I think like any game, like a team-based game like this in any genre, if you don't have a good mix and match of teammates, it's going to be difficult, right? Like I think it's possible. I think, especially in the game we played in the video, or I think I probably assembled a more cohesive unit than you guys did.
Well, you took 30 minutes to choose your team, whereas Graham and I were just kind of like, these people look.
That is a thing I was going to say as like a criticism. At first, it's pretty intimidating, like looking at all of them, because you get these cards, and you look at them like, what are all these cards? And you realize, each character has its own special abilities, and you have to like kind of read through all of them basically to figure out who you want to play as. There's a learning curve, honestly, to just which is true to the genre. I think a lot of these games have tons of heroes you can choose from,
and I'm sure part of the we got destroyed in our gameplay. I mean, you beat us handily.
Our strategy was really poor.
It was, and we did, like you said, I don't think we picked the most cohesive cards.
Yeah. I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Like, I definitely enjoyed the game and even some of the randomness at times. It's it does kind of feel, it has that like chaotic feel of a video game. But one thing I did not really enjoy was the game's respawning system. Now so first off, the way it works is when your character dies, you put them in your discard. And then you have to keep drawing. You can discard a number of cards every round, so you can get to them quicker. But and I know that's kind of how and then also if you level up, you're adding more cards to your deck, so it takes a little bit longer, which is actually how a lot of MOBA video games work. Though, like the higher the level you are, the longer you take the respawn. So that, I understand the mechanic and why they chose it. However, sometimes when you adapt a video game to a board game, or oftentimes, it doesn't really play all that well. I don't know. I think it affects the strategy more in this kind of format than it would in a video game where you're just like, oh, I died, I'm going to respawn in a certain amount of time. It feels like you have a little bit. It's a little bit more comfortable when it happens in a game than when it happens in a board game. At least that's how it felt for me.
Okay, I disagree. I actually think the cooldown respawn system actually works really well. I think it's quite a clever solution for the problem. Like, I feel like what you want is some sort of system where the person who gets killed isn't at a disadvantage, which I think is...
That's not what I meant.
That's what it sounds like. Like, I feel like if you're able to kill one of your opponents, why shouldn't you have an advantage?
I didn't state it as clearly as I should have. It kind of ties into I don't know if I completely agree with the mechanic where you lose 3 health off your bit every time a tower or player gets killed. Because I understand that that's it's almost like an alternate way to play, but it feels like a bit too much to me. I don't want to get into that too much.
It's a way to keep the game time reasonable.
That's what it's for, and I get that. But at the same time, that feels like a big punishment for losing a character.
Well, I get it.
And then when the respawn time is so disproportionate to what a video game respawn time is, it could just be one round.
The decks aren't that big. You can get a call.
Well, it is in literal time.
One or two turns, and that person's gonna be back on the board.
In League of Legends, you die, you're gonna respawn in 30 seconds. Whereas in this game, you could die and not respawn for 2 rounds, and that 2 rounds could be like 30 minutes.
That's probably about 30 seconds of.
It doesn't feel. I know that it's a literal translation. It still doesn't feel like as fun or natural like it does in the video game.
I agree with Will because I didn't like the respawn in this game, and I don't mind. I think it was okay in the sense that you put your card back into the pile and you wait for him to draw back up. But we had 2 people get killed that didn't show up into the game again.
Well, it's because it's just more a factor of when they were killed. I was pretty close to winning.
True, but my person was. I mean, how many rounds did the game last? It wasn't even that many rounds.
Don't know.
It wasn't that many.
6 or 7?
I know, but it wasn't that many rounds, so it feels like it needs to get back into the game faster. I mean, you shouldn't only...
What's the solution then?
You could have it so that maybe at a lower level, okay, maybe they go like 3 cards from the top of the discard deck, and so it comes up quicker, and then maybe at a higher level you go further and down to the discard deck.
I don't know what the solution is, and I don't know if there even is one. I get exactly why they made the mechanic the way it is. I think it's an intelligent design if you're trying to base it how MOBAs play. I just think it's another example of the disconnect between video game and board game and how they don't always translate one-to-one.
You should, just don't... It's pretty easy to not get killed in this game, I think, if you're, not... rushing, one character like headlong by themselves into enemy territory. You can do things. You can retreat and rest and stuff. So
yeah, but here's another thing. But that's again, it's like in this game to rest, you have to use an entire action of an entire round. Yeah. Whereas in a video game, it's not like they don't play out in rounds, so it doesn't feel like you're losing that much when you retreat from the fray and heal. In this game, it feels like.
Again, it's just a matter of
blowing your chances to win when you do stuff.
It's just a matter of patience then. It's just everything takes longer in this than it would in a video game.
I disagree with the whole rushing in and attacking the towers bit because that's exactly what you did and it worked out for you. You just rushed in and started attacking towers with your Minotaur guy. Yeah. And that's literally how you won the game.
Yeah, but I also kept people back. I kept my monk back to defend, and I had other people on the flanks.
So that's what Will also did too. He rushed in and started attacking.
The thing is, I rushed him forward because you guys had vacated. I wouldn't have necessarily been as aggressive if there were people there to mess her up. It was actually a female. It was, okay, there was no one defending the towers. I'll go attack the towers, even though, they obviously deal their own damage. But I do want to, something I think we'll all agree on is that this game is probably not best with 3 players. I would recommend it with 2. I'd probably recommend it with 4. 3 is kind of an awkward fit. I don't think it's a huge thing.
I would disagree.
I feel like of course you will. I think, here's the thing, I feel like you guys will assume that having 2 players on one side is 100% a disadvantage. I'm not as convinced. I think it really depends on how the game goes. Because when you've got 2 players, you've got smaller decks, you've got half decks each, so there's a lot more like turnover, I feel like. And you've less to consider.
I didn't feel like it was such a big issue, the whole 2 versus 1 thing. Me and him probably didn't do the greatest job at talking ahead of time and planning out a strategy. We both kind of picked our 2 favorite players and just went with it from there. Yeah. It was probably a bad idea, and that's the biggest disconnect and probably what created some of the awkwardness when trying to figure out a strategy was that. But I feel like if you had a proper time to sit down with your partner and look at, I'm doing this, okay, I'm going to pick this person, and you pick this person, I really think about it, it would have worked out better.
Yeah. The biggest problem with 2 versus 1 is when it's 2-on-2, both teams will be communicating openly about strategy.
Yeah.
That negates each other. Like that, both teams can hear each other's strategy, so therefore it's no longer a disadvantage or an advantage. I found myself actually keeping myself from discussing strategy with Graham too much because I felt like it would give you too much of an idea. Because of the way this game works with actions, move, action, I think that format makes it kind of hard to discuss strategy, because if I discuss what actions I'm playing, then he knows where to move. So it's you could sure D, you had more cards, more to manage, but at least you could have a cohesive vision for each player. Whereas we can only plan for 2 without. If we try to talk too much, you would have used that information.
I'm not saying I was distinctly at an advantage either. I just think it's not. It's just a strange way to play the game.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, so I think ideally you'd play with 2. You could play with 4. I would not recommend it too much for 3.
I think 4 players it would be good. It'd be good.
It'd be all right. Again, you still
there
have
aren't that many
communication
2-on-2 games out there, and this would be a really cool one to play if you have 4 people. I recommend it actually that way. One last little nitpick about gameplay, and this is gonna be really short. I don't like that the remaining turrets don't defend the bit when people are in here. I know in League of Legends, there are turrets around the Nexus. The elemental bit is like the Nexus. So I like that in that game, like even once you get through to the final defenses, you're still getting hit. Your minions and you are still getting hit from other turrets.
That's so much though. Like that's 8. If there's 2 up, that's 8 damage per turn. Plus
that should be the incentive to destroy the towers, like in actual.
Yeah, there's incentives. But
there wouldn't
destroy
be
the towers.
Destroy all the towers? I don't know. I mean, it's
most of them.
It would make it feel like when you fall behind, you're not so desperate.
Counterpoint.
You feel like you would have enough time.
You can have greater defenses there if you just put your characters there.
Sure, but then we're not out there attacking. Like you don't have that much to work with here, so you have to be out there. I'm not going to keep 2 people back just in case you defend.
Let's talk about other stuff. I like the artwork a lot. I think the characters are very charming. I like the general look of the game. It's not going to appeal to everyone, I think, but if you're the sort of person who has nostalgia for older video games, it's cute.
And I think
attractive.
The best artwork is on the character cards, and then their like highest level attack. I love the artwork on these kind of cards.
Yeah, they're real good. They capture the feel.
Just super. Some of them are like kind of gory, which I wasn't expecting, but they're just. I don't know. It's just. I agree with the artwork. And the board is, I think, real pleasant. It's simple, but very pleasant looking.
I like the size of the board, which I think was a wise consideration, because you've got these things taking up space on your table already. These are cool, by the way. Everything fits in really well on these. And there was a concern, like the little cubes would move around, but they're pretty good as far as staying in place. But but having a board that's not super big was nice. The rulebook is decent. I probably would have had a glossary or a FAQ of some kind in here. There's a couple things that aren't entirely clear that you sort of have to guess. I mean, there's a little bits explained in the back, but not everything you would want necessarily is included. But for the most part, it's fine.
I thought the rulebook. I read through it, and I thought it was, I think it's fairly solid. It's better than average.
Okay. Well, anything else you want to add before we wrap up and give it our score? We've talked a lot.
Nothing else.
Okay.
Me. Graham?
I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have some differences of opinion on this, more so than most games we play. I like it for the most part. A lot of the problems you guys seem to have with the cooldown and whatnot, it just did not bother me. It's too much. I think this is, if you're a MOBA diehard, you're gonna go one of 2 ways with it. You're either gonna find it silly, I think, or you're gonna find it charming. I don't know if there's gonna be much of a middle ground for people who are just kind of meh on it. So, I think it's a solid strategy game with a reasonable playtime and cool artwork. I will give it. I'll give it 3.5 out of 5.
So you were on the fence between 4 and 3.5?
Yeah, I like it more than you guys do, but it's a good game.
Like I said a couple times already, I don't think the real-time strategy style video game really translates to a board game. And honestly, I didn't even have the time to complain about all the stuff I wanted to complain about. I'm gonna give it 1 thumb down.
Okay, 1 thumb down. All right. Yeah, sometimes I play devil's advocate in reviews, and I know that
and in real life,
it seems like I didn't like this. Yeah, well, it's just who I am. It's my weakness. A lot of what I said about this game, I don't know how much they're knocks in the game or they're just my personal preferences. Despite some of the things I've said earlier, I would definitely recommend this to people, especially people who like, Dota or League of Legends. So, being as fair and objective as I can, I think I would give this game probably, I'm gonna say a B-. And I was even considering giving it a B, but I have to stay true to myself, with these scores. But I still want people to keep an open mind with this one. There is a lot of quality here. Just maybe not for people. And we're no one at this table plays MOBAs.
Yeah.
So maybe we're coming at this from like a weird perspective.
Okay. Well, thank you for watching this review of Battle for Biternia. If you enjoyed it, you can, of course, give us a thumbs up. You can give us a comment of your own thoughts on this review or the game itself. And you can, of course, subscribe to our channel. If you've not done so yet, you can come back every week and get reviews like this of our gameplay games. And you can also share this video with your friends if you're so inclined. Until next time, you can come back this Friday for our next gameplay video where we're going to shrink down and get tiny.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is the board game.
Boom, Rick Moranis coming back. Until then, though, thank you for watching, everybody. Toodaloo.
See ya.
Bye.